Okay, these notes are simplifying expressions by order of operations. So, same as before. Now, you can use this mnemonic device if you want to, of PEMDAS or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. It's just the saying that goes along with it. If that works for you, that's fine. If you have your own wording sentence that works for you, that's great. Okay, now, a couple things that you need to keep in mind. Parentheses. Okay, or other grouping symbols has to come first. That's the P. Okay, now, other grouping symbols could be brackets or they could be absolute value bars as well. So parentheses, absolute value bars, brackets, any type of grouping symbols has to come first. Then the E stands for exponents. So any exponents you need to take care of second. Then you're going to go through multiplication and division. Okay, these happen at the same exact time, but you want to do them in the order that they appear. So from left to right, you take care of any multiplication or division. So the multiplication does not have to come first. You could do division first, depending on how it appears. You want to do them from left to right. Same thing goes for addition and subtraction. You want to complete those in left to right order. Okay, so if subtraction happens to come first, then you're going to do the subtraction first. Now, if we look at the first example, we have 27 divided by 3 squared times 2 minus 3. So if we think about PEMDAS, there are no parentheses here in order to take care of, so we can skip that part. Next up comes exponents, which we do have in this case. So we have 3 squared. We have to take care of that first, and that becomes 9. Now, after our exponents are taken care of, then comes multiplication or division. Okay, we need to take care of those in the order that we see them. So 27 divided by 9 is seen first. We have to go from left to right. 27 divided by 9 is going to give us 3. Everything else gets carried down. So we rewrite our times 2 and we rewrite our minus 3. Now we still need to take care of the multiplication in this problem. So up next is our 3 times 2. That becomes a 6. And again, we drop down this minus 3. Now is when we go to our last steps of addition and subtraction. I don't have any addition in this problem, so that's fine. I can skip straight to my subtraction of 6 minus 3 is 3 for our final answer. Okay. Now example number 2. Again, parentheses or any kind of grouping has to come first. So we have to take care of what's inside of these parentheses first. Okay, so our 24 gets dropped down. Our subtraction sign gets dropped down. This 4 squared inside of the parentheses becomes 16. 1 to the 0 power inside of the parentheses becomes just a 1. Anything to the 0 power is always 1. And then we drop down our plus 2/5. Now we still have to take care of what's inside of the parentheses. So this 16 plus 1 has to come next. 16 plus 1 becomes 17. Now that it's down to one value, we can drop the parentheses. Okay, again, the 24 and the subtraction come down, and our plus 2/5 on the end comes down as well. Now all I have left is subtraction and addition. Okay, you do that from left to right, so in the order that you see it. So we take care of the 24 minus 17 first. 24 minus 17 gives us 7. We drop down our plus 2/5. Now you can take care of the final step, which is the addition. 7 plus 2/5 is simply 7 2/5, or if you do that in your calculator, you're going to get 7.4 for a final answer. Either one is acceptable. Now example number 3, we've got a lot of grouping symbols happening here. So we have 2 with a bracket, and then times 30 minus, and then we have a set of parentheses inside of here with 8 plus 13 in it. When you have multiple grouping symbols like this, you want to start on the inside and work your way out. So I'm going to start with this 8 plus 13 because it's the furthest on the inside of my grouping symbols. So 8 plus 13 is going to give us 21. Everything else needs to get carried down to the next step. So the 2 gets carried down, the 30, and the subtraction symbol gets carried down. Okay. Now I still have grouping symbols here. These brackets need to get taken care of next. So inside of there is now 30 minus 21. 30 minus 21 becomes a 9. Again, you carry this 2 straight down. Okay. There is no symbol between this 2 and the 9. Okay. When you see no symbol at all, That means multiplication. So our final step is to take 2 times 9, which gives us 18 for our final answer. We're going to move on to the next example. We have 2 minus 4 squared, and then in parentheses we have 5 minus the square root of 9, and then outside the parentheses is plus 7. So again, we have to take care of our grouping symbols first, which means those parentheses need to get taken care of. So I'm going to bring down everything else. The 2 minus 4 squared gets dropped down. Inside of our parentheses is a square root symbol, so we're going to take care of that first. So our 5 gets dropped down, minus square root of 9 is really 3, and then bring down your plus 7. Now again, I've still got parentheses here. I have 2 values inside of there. I need to take care of that first. So 2 minus 4 squared gets dropped down. 5 minus 3 is 2, and then plus 7. Now up next is our exponents. That comes second in our PEMDAS. So 2 minus 4 squared here becomes a 16. Your 2 drops down and your plus 7 drops down. Next is either multiplication or division. Okay, there is no division here, but I do have multiplication. 16, there is no symbol between my 16 and my 2, which means I am multiplying there. Okay, so I have to take care of this multiplication first, even though it's in the middle. That's what comes next in PEMDAS. So 2 and minus get dropped down. 16 times 2 is 32, and you bring down your 7. Now, I have only subtraction and addition first. Okay, addition does not have to come first. You do them in the order that you see them. So 2 minus 32 needs to get done before this addition. So 2 minus 32 is a negative 30. Drop down your plus 7, and then negative 30 plus 7 is a negative 23. One more example to work through. We've got 2 sets of grouping symbols. So we have this absolute value here, which is those straight bars are absolute value bars. And then we also have parentheses. So both of these need to get taken care of first. Okay, we also have a square root out here on its own. We're going to take care of that at the beginning as well. That's a type of grouping symbol. So that's going to get taken care of first as well. So I have negative 15 divided by, those both get dropped down. Now, inside of my absolute value bars, I'm going to take care of that. So negative 6 plus 3 gives me a negative 3. Keep those absolute value bars. We're going to deal with those in a second. Drop down your subtraction. Take care of this grouping, which is 8 times 2 becomes 16, divided by, and then the square root of 16 becomes a 4. Okay, so we simplified all 3 of these pieces. We simplified the negative 6 plus 3. We simplified the 8 times 2. And then we also simplified the square root of 16, which became a 4. Everything else got carried down. Now up next, we have one more grouping symbol that needs to be finalized. So the absolute value of negative 3 becomes positive 3. Right? Absolute value takes that number and turns it positive. So now I have negative 15 divided by 3 minus 16 divided by 4. So multiplication and division come next. All I have here is division, but I have 2 sets of it. So negative 15 divided by 3 becomes a negative 5. Carry down your subtraction symbol, and then you have 16 divided by 4, which is a 4. Now you have negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9. The side note here is just showing you the absolute value. Okay, it is talking about absolute value is the number's distance from 0. Okay, so it's always going to be positive. When you're done taking the absolute value, you should have a positive number. So the square root of the absolute value, of negative 3 is 3 spaces away from 0. Okay, so absolute value is how far away is that number from 0. Okay, the last example here is giving you an order of operations problem, but you need to place parentheses in the expression somewhere so that your final answer is 13. Okay, this is just going to take some trial and error. There are 2 attempts shown here. Okay, this first attempt does not work. When you group the 7 times 4, if you go through all of the order of operations, you end up with 22, which is not correct. We wanted to get a value of 13. The second attempt is if you put parentheses around this -3 plus 7 at the beginning and then work through your order of operations, you will get 13. Now there may be more options, so if you try this, you might be able to get it with placing the grouping symbols in a different spot, and that's fine. Okay, but it will take some trial and error. You may not move the numbers around. The numbers stay where they are. All you are doing is placing parentheses somewhere in that problem to get to a final answer of 13. Okay? And this was order of operations, which is our second concept.